Welcome back to the Daily Sales Briefing, Selling in a Crisis. My name is Jeb Blunt. I'm the CEO of Sales Gravy and the author of Fanatical Prospecting, People Buy Used, Sales EQ, Objections, and Inked. Today, our topic is what you need to do if you're starting a career in the middle of this crisis. There are thousands upon thousands of high school graduates, of college graduates, of people who are going into the workforce. They were expecting to go into the hottest economy we've ever seen, and suddenly they're going into an economy where the wheels have fallen off the bus and things look a little bit bleak. I've read just last night articles about how companies are even getting rid of all of their summer internships, which puts a lot of people who are, say, juniors behind the eight ball. But if you're starting a career in this crisis, you've got to start thinking a little bit differently. And first of all, the first thing you got to do is relax. You've just got to relax and just be where you are, because where we are is where we are, and nothing is going to change that. So just take a deep breath. You're going to be okay. And oh, by the way, things will go back and they're going to be better at some point in the future. But just take a couple of deep breaths and focus on what you can control and what you can do. Now, you're going to have to go out there and work a lot harder to get the job of your dreams than you had before. And by the way, you're probably not going to get the job of your dreams. I mean, you might, but the chances are that you won't. So you've got to, first learn how to compromise. And instead of thinking, I'm going to go out there and get this job and be the boss and make this much money, you've got to start thinking about where you can get in and where you can make a difference. You are also going to work a lot harder at getting a job. You're probably going to have to work a lot harder online, do research. You're going to have to get really good at doing a job search and doing interviews, because the companies that are going to be hiring people are going to be super picky because they can be. When we start thinking about compromise, the one thing that you got to think about is, where can I get in and where can I have an opportunity? And sometimes it's going to be at the very bottom rung, which is what most people have had to experience when they've gone through downturns. And so if that's the case, when you're at the bottom of a downturn and you have to start from the job that may not be the job that you want, when you get in those jobs, you have to think about one thing, and that is that there is no substitute for busting your ass and working hard. So you're probably not always going to get the job you want. Don't think I've got to hold out for better. Get what you can get and get in. Now, that doesn't mean that you should go work for a company you don't want to work for or work in an industry you don't work for, but start thinking, if I can get my foot in the door and I can bust my ass and work really, really hard, then I can rise. I can get a promotion. I can build my resume. I can build my confidence because I can do this. And folks like me, because I've been through a couple of these cycles and I got out of college in one of these cycles. Folks like me, if you go talk to them, will tell you just exactly what I said. Go out there, work hard, bust your ass, volunteer for everything, do what it takes. This will make you so much better and so much more valuable, and companies will see that and you will get promoted. You will move through the organization, and it will give you an opportunity to change jobs and move into something else later on when things get better. And finally, I think this is what's so important, is that for a person who is getting a job in this environment, the level of adversity that you're going to have to go through, the hard work that you're going to have to give, the pain and suffering that you may have to go through in the process, the compromises that you have to make, the lessons that you are going to learn are going to make you so much better. I remember when I was younger and I would talk to my grandfather, who went through the Great Depression. And he did that at about the same time that same age that a lot of college students are now, who are getting out of school in the middle of this crisis. And he would talk about the Depression and what it taught him and what he had to go through and all the adversity. And he was an extremely successful businessman who basically retired a multimillionaire. And all of the lessons that he learned in the Depression drove how much better he was. When I think about my own company, Sales Gravy, and in the middle of this crisis, we're thriving and doing well, and I'm so proud of my organization. We built this company in the middle of the last global financial crisis, which was the worst I'd seen in my lifetime. But because we went through that adversity, we built the company to survive another adversity, to survive an adversity, and to actually grow in the middle of a crisis like this. So when the crisis hit, we just simply pivoted and we just kept moving, and we haven't missed a beat because of that. You're going to have the same lesson. It doesn't feel like it right now. It's maybe a little bit disappointing, but I can promise you that you're going to be stronger and you're going to be like iron if you go out there and you get it done. But I want to make this point. You're probably going to have to negotiate a little bit. Excuse me, with yourself. You're going to compromise a little bit with yourself. And this is important, there is no substitute for going out and working hard and busting your ass and earning your stripes. That is the daily sales briefing. And do we have any questions?
Yeah, so we have a lot of questions actually. On the Sales Gravy website, Bill wants to know, I just took the voicemail course and wanted to ask some clarifying questions. With the sequencing, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and the 4, 3, 2, 1 sequencing, how do you spread this out by days?
So that's a great question. So Bill's talking about the voicemail course on Sales Gravy University. You can check that out. Just go to learn.salesgravy.com, learn.salesgravy.com. And he's talking about the sequencing module that was in there. So Bill, you kind of need to figure that out. So you could do that over 21 days. You could do it over 14 days. And those are typically the steps I take. When I say 14 days, that would be 10 business days. If we were talking about 21 days, that would be 5, 10, 15 business days that you would run that over. You could run it over a full month, but going longer than that probably wouldn't make a lot of sense because you're not going to get the touches done in a frequency or close enough together that you'll be memorable. So the whole point here is you're building familiarity. You're also getting statistics on your side. So the more touches you make, the more likely people will connect with you, and you're touching people close enough together so that they're more likely to respond. The rule of thumb that I would use is the size of the opportunity. So if you have a lot of opportunities, so let's say you have a huge database, so there's say 10,000 businesses out there you could work with, and the sales cycle is relatively small, so are relatively short. So once you get into the deal, maybe it's a 1, 2, 3 call close, then you want to compress those touches really close together. And I would say you want to do that over a 2-week period. If they're really large accounts and you've got a much larger sales cycle, then I would say you want to be looking at that on a 3, 4, or 5 or 6 week period, because the deals are so big, the opportunities are are profitable for you long term, that you just want to be careful that you're not touching them too close and you look transactional. But I would just use my noggin, use my common sense in those situations. And the other thing, Bill, I would do is I would A/B test it. So I would take some, say maybe run a sequence over a period of a week, maybe run one over 10 days, run one over 30 days, and see, and get a good group of prospects for each one of those, and then see which one gives you the best conversions.
From YouTube, we have a fan that is a huge fan of fanatical prospecting and just switched into the personal line of insurance sales. It's a new agency set to start in the beginning of May. He just wants to know, how does he tackle that current environment?
That's a good question. So I'm assuming personal line means you're selling into consumers. So the very first thing that you're going to do if you're just starting in May in this particular environment where it's going to be hard to go out and meet people face to face. So if I were giving you advice, say back in January, say you need to go in your local market, go to your chamber meetings, go to chamber after hours, go to Rotary, maybe have some events that you might hold for people. That's a good way to get to know people. What I would do if I were you right now is the first thing I would do is I would look at my circle of influence. So think about all the people that you know, all the people in your network. These could be people that are really close, maybe people that are far away. And I would begin contacting them. And I would contact them by phone, on social media, and an email if you know them, and start having conversations with them. Then I would take a look at the organization. If the organization has any level of database, or you have a database from where you came from, in the old days we would call that a Rolodex, but if you have a list of contacts that from another line of business that you've worked with, then I would begin reaching out and giving them a call. On Sales Gravy University, learn.salesgravy.com, we have a brand new course, which is Crisis Sales Strategies for Financial Advisors. I think some of the information in there would be very helpful for you in terms of what you're doing right now to build your book. So I would suggest going and taking that course. I think the course costs $14. So if you use the coupon code GRAVY123, you can shave 50% off of that. So I might go try that course because I think it'll give you some information on what you need to do to build your personal brand in the meantime, to bring more people to you, so that the more people know who you are. But my first step would be look at your circle of influence, contact them, then take a look at whatever information you have in a database in terms of more people that you can reach out to, and then start building your personal brand online in particular so that people know who you are. And then as we begin to open up, I think then you can go back into a little bit more face to face so you can get to know people.
So on Facebook, Horace Perez asks, what do you think about people who are looking at postgraduate options for business persons or sales professionals?
I mean, if you're thinking that you want to go get an MBA in particular, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that if you think that the MBA is going to give you a better shot down the road, and you have the funds to do that, and you can just stay in school, and you've got the ability to do that without having to live like homeless on the sidewalk, then certainly that might make sense for you. So I think you got to make the right decision for yourself in that moment. And that may actually buy you some time to get over this hump. Plus, you get out and you have an MBA. And that, having a higher level graduate degree certainly gives you some, from a competitive standpoint, it gives you a leg up on other people. Now, if you get into sales, once you get into sales, you can have all the MBAs, you can have a PhD. If you outsell other people and you can make it rain, you're the person that's going to get promoted and get past everybody. So once the MBA is going to get you into your first sales job above other people, but not necessarily going to allow you to move on. Now, there are some organizations that might look at your MBA down the road, and if you're competing, say, for a sales leadership position, it's going to give you a leg up. Most of the time, if you can't, for example, afford not to work in a career and get your MBA, my recommendation would be go out and grab a career, and then you're just going to have to go through the pain of getting your MBA while you work. If you get with a good company, they may pay for that, which is a good thing. And because so much of learning is moved online, and a lot of organizations, a lot of companies a lot of universities and colleges are allowing you to take classes online, that actually might be a viable strategy. There's certainly nothing wrong with getting a higher level of education, nothing wrong with that at all. And it will make you better and make you more well-rounded. But staying out of the workforce without any experience and getting an MBA, I'm not sure that that's going to give you a whole lot of a leg up. And I think that you'll find that most good business programs suggest that you're working and getting an MBA, and even better, that you work for 3 to 5 years and get some experience, and then you go back and you get a higher level degree.
From Bill on the Sales Gravy website, he wants to know, for your call blocks, when you're calling in the morning for live connections and you get a voicemail, do you hang up or do you redial during that time, or would you rather have a voicemail block in the afternoon?
Couple of ways you can look at that. So if you're doing a call block in the morning and you want to move really, really fast, so you just want to go through it and move fast, so your goal is to make a lot of dials so that you improve the statistical probability of getting someone on the phone, then you can dial without leaving a voicemail, and then you can come back and dial that group again, that the people that you didn't talk to in that particular call block, and leave them voicemails during a pure voicemail block. And what that means is that you've actually scheduled the time just to leave voicemail. So it's a really fun thing to do. If you've got plenty of time and you can do both at the same time, certainly nothing wrong with that. So it just depends on the strategy. So a lot of times if I'm dialing a brand new list of say more cold prospects, I'll go really fast through the list just because I want to try to get people on the telephone. Then I'll come back and leave voicemails. If I'm calling prospects that are in a sequence, for example, and I'm calling in that sequence, the voicemail is part of that sequence, so I'm likely going to call and then I'm going to leave a voicemail. If you're calling a list of prospects that are all like the same industry or all the same role, and you're leaving essentially the same voicemail for them, so you've used the 5-step voicemail process or framework, and you've built a compelling message around that particular industry group, it probably makes sense to go ahead and leave a voicemail at the time. So it's really your choice. But for me, the call blocks where I'm not leaving a voicemail are the ones where I'm moving really fast through a list, and my whole goal is to give myself the highest statistical probability of talking with someone in that particular moment.
On Facebook, Victor asks, Jeb, what do you think about star sharing some free content with clients? Would that be a good investment?
Say that one more time for me.
What do you think about star sharing some free content with clients? Would that be a good investment?
I don't exactly know what star sharing means, so you'd have to explain that one.
Maybe start sharing.
Start sharing. What do I mean by start sharing? So there's nothing wrong with sharing free content. They call that insight. So if you've got clients out there right now, whether they're customers or whether they're prospects, maybe they're deals that have stalled in your pipeline just because of the crisis and you're trying to nurture them. If you've got good quality content that you can share with them, and by the way, this goes to the question we got earlier from the individual on YouTube that is going into personal insurance lines. If you've got content on that, like a newsletter or what have you, you can give people, you should absolutely do it. The key thing about sharing content is you have to share the content without any strings attached to it. So you're giving them content that doesn't require them to jump through any hoops, to do anything at all. You're just doing the content. Now, you can share that content via text message with people that you know. So if you know them, send them a text message, hey, Jeb, this is really good content. Check this out. If you could share it via email, you could do webinars. I mean, this essentially is a way of sharing free content with folks, and I don't do a lot of free content. So this particular daily sales briefing is delivering free content to connect with people who read my books or consume our training programs. Thank you, Bill, again for taking the course. So it could be any of those things. So the point is that if you've got good quality content and you can share that content, it creates an opportunity for you to engage a prospect or engage a client. It nurtures the relationship. And at the end of the day, it creates some level of obligation or feeling of obligation. So when the time is right, they're more likely to call you in and interact with you. So definitely start sharing good insight.
On YouTube from Tarun, he asked, what point should I consider for opting into a sales training program?
So what points? So if first of all, are they paying you? So that's number one. So I'm not a big fan of opting into training programs where you're not getting paid. So you've got this is sort of the pursuit of happiness with the Will Smith movie where you're working someplace for 8 weeks or 9 weeks at the chance of getting a job. There's nothing wrong with that if you choose that and you believe in that. However, there's a lot of programs like that that just take advantage of you. So the number one thing is, are you getting paid? And if you are getting paid, if you sell things and you create value beyond what you're getting paid for, can you get some sort of a variable income for that? So are you paying you commission checks for that? So those would be the first things. Number two is, what is it? Like, how are you being trained? And the way you're being trained, it should be two sides of that. You should be getting education so that there's a level of training where people are actually teaching you, and you should be getting experience. So you're actually getting hands-on and doing that. And then finally, I'd be looking at what is the end game. So when I first came out of school, I took a job and it wasn't a great job. It was actually a pretty terrible job, but there was a really good opportunity to get promoted. And I worked with a great leader who said, this is what you have to go through. It's 8 weeks. And if you do these things, you're going to get promoted and we're going to help you along the way. So I went and did something I really hated for about 8 weeks. It was terrible. And I went through that process. And sure enough, at the end of the 8 weeks, I did everything I was supposed to do. And I got a promotion into a job that was much better. And then that job led to another promotion, which led to another promotion, which turned into a really, really good career choice for me. So I'm looking at making sure that the people that you're talking with have an end game for it and that you can really trust them and that they're people that when you talk to them, you get and you understand that they're sincere about what's going to happen. The only thing that I would also look at is this. I would make sure that the company that you go to is stable. Right now, there's a lot of instability. So you don't want to get into the middle of the program and then they just lay you off because there was no stability. So just make sure you're making a good choice in the company that you go to. That's it for the questions today. Thank you so much. They're excellent questions. And this is the Daily Sales Briefing. I will see you Monday at noon right here. Bring your questions.